Okay, this is continuing. This is part two of the story of my spiritual awakening. Something's going on. I only got to 13 minutes and the phone overheated and it shut down the camera. So I have to, this is my other phone. Um, I have to start quick before I lose my train of thought. Otherwise, I would have waited to do it later. Okay, counselor told me you don't have enough credits to graduate. You didn't pass enough classes. I was in, and this was like the day before the graduation ceremony. He scrambled and talked to one of my teachers and got them to bend the rules and fixed it. So I mean, I was out of touch with reality. I was so into this mania. Ooh, that might have been early manic behavior. Oh my goodness, I never thought about that. Because I told you the story about getting suicidally depressed while I was in high school. In the midst, the girl I had the crush on, she was one of the church girls. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's move the story on. So I get out of high school. I got accepted to Pepperdine University, which was, oh my God, a weird just mistake. A mistake. It was not, oh God. There's just so many layers to these stories, and creating tangents. Okay, I'm not going to talk about going to Pepperdine. Not now, at least. Um, the high school years were the height of faith in Jesus and the church working for me. After high school, it started to go down. Dropping out of Pepperdine, that's what happened after one trimester there, was the beginning of my decline. And the timeline that I was on, I seriously could have ended up killing myself. I could have been dead by the age of 20 or 21, the way the consecutive experiences were happening. One heartbreak after another. So dropping out of college was a heartbreak. Coming back to San Ramon was a heartbreak. Getting hooked up with my closest friends from high school, who were mainly the gymnasts, who were still in town, that led to heartbreak because they're the guys that got me smoking pot and drinking beer. That should never have happened. That the trajectory I was on with my faith in Jesus, where I wanted to go to school, I wanted to go to a Bible school. I wanted to become a missionary. But my stepfather, he wanted me to become what he never became. So that's why he pushed for me to go to Pepperdine. He wanted me to become a lawyer. He thought if I at least got into Pepperdine, they would pick up everything else and turn me into a lawyer. No way, no way. So if I had gone on to Bible school and stayed in the midst of other, young Bible believing people, I never would have gotten into smoking pot or drinking beer, which also led to other drugs. So I guess part of my wisdom to pass on here is pay really close attention to decisions you make, and especially the people that you hang out with. I'm saying this to the young people in particular. Set a standard for yourself and stick to it. And also you have to constantly be developing sharper, clearer connection to God and the way that you hear messages from God, when you pray and you ask for an answer, you've got to be so receptive, so clear-mindedly receptive of the answers that come back for you. So I went about 2 years in this hanging out with my friends. I worked in a record store. Worst thing ever. Worst place ever for me to work, because all those people were into drugs. We used to get stoned in the bathroom in the back of the office at work, and you'd work stoned. If you were on the night shift, one of the guys would go over to 7-Eleven and come back with a 6-pack of beer on the job. What the hell? That was a real bad period for me. So I got to a point where I was feeling desperate, and I hit a point of desperation, and I cried out to God, and I said, you got to give me a miracle, or I'm not going to make it. And so one night in particular, I was praying, and this plan kind of came before me. It said, let's make this night of prayer a ritual. There was a community swimming pool in the neighborhood that I lived in. I went to it after dark. It was closed. I jumped the fence. I got into the pool, and I did a baptism of myself. Afraid to get baptized by the Mormons, but this was different. My life was on the edge. And I asked, for a renewal of the Holy Spirit being with me and coming upon, being refreshing me with new hope. After that experience, and I did feel lighter, I came out of the pool. I went for a little walk up into the hills that are nearby where I live. I went across Crow Canyon Road and climbed to the top of this little hillside and called out. I was shouting out my prayers to God. I said, God, please, hear me, help me, give me an answer. What am I going to do? How am I going to save myself in this? The idea that started to come in was, you need to find somebody to work closely with you. You need a partner, like a best friend partner. But it went even further. It was like, you need to have a soulmate, life mate. And I said, you mean like find somebody to get married to? And this was one of the first times I felt my intuition speak to me. And I felt a wave of energy wash over me that was warm, and it was bright, and it physically pushed me back. I had to look up to heaven, and it felt like the answer to that question was yes, you need to find somebody to marry. So I thought about the people I knew here. I was still involved with a church group here, and none of the people here I felt any kind of sync with, no kind of synchronicity with. And being in California, it felt to me that I was only going to meet more people that are like me, that have the tendencies I've experienced of getting involved with drugs and stuff. And so that the answer there was, well, God, I don't think I can find anybody here. I haven't yet. And I said, is there someplace else I could go where I could meet somebody? Again, yes, there is. And I said, where? And I started to think of the places I had been, and I said, Ohio? My parents were from Ohio. My grandmother still lived in Ohio. She was my only grandparent left. I thought, maybe I could go to Ohio. Maybe the church people back there are more serious about, living a good life and stuff. And the answer came, no, that's not the answer. So I think at this point I had also already made a trip to England. See, I'm really jumping around. I had been to England. I think it was the summer before. And I came home from England really depressed. I went there hoping to find a community. I was thinking about communes at that time, that would be a good thing for me to get involved with. Couldn't find a commune in England. So I ended up coming home depressed. And yeah. So I said, well, here's the other thing I did too. I turned to the 4 directions. I turned south, north, east, and west each time and asked this question. And I also asked, is there a person that you're thinking about? Do you have a person already picked out for me that I just need to find where they are and go to them? And that came back as a yes answer. So I faced all 4 directions. North, south, west was all no. Turned east, that was yes. That's when I said, Ohio? No. I said, do I have to go further? Yes. Do I need to go back to Europe? Yes. Okay. So I came off that hill that night convinced that I knew what the next thing for me to do was. Oh God, this is going to turn into a really long story. Which I guess is okay, but I'm not going to be able to finish it today. I've got to go to work. I'm going to start door dashing in 15 minutes. Let me just keep talking a little bit more, and I'll try and make the next part of the story shorter. So within 3 months, I was flying back over to England. There's so many good points about this story. There's the part of the story where I get arrested at Heathrow Airport because I had a roach, a half of a joint in my shirt pocket. I got busted in customs in Heathrow on my way to go find this person that God said was waiting for me. And I do eventually find them. I do eventually meet them. I eventually marry them. I spend 8 years married to them. Through the course of that marriage, good things happened and bad things happened, but it mainly ended up being a descent into,